Citizenships with mandatory military service. Do you need to serve in the army if you get citizenship in a country, specifically citizenship by investment or citizenship by naturalization? Let's say you live somewhere 2 to 5 years and there's mandatory military service. Do you actually need to serve? Because obviously this is a huge thing when choosing a citizenship. Do you need to go to the military? Last night, I was at a fashion event here in Warsaw, Poland. I was meeting with a guy from Singapore who runs a fashion agency, a modeling agency in Singapore. And he was saying that he was born with 2 passports, Singapore and American. He decided to renounce his American citizenship. I basically told him that was the best decision you could have done, man. Keep your Singaporean passport. But he had to serve in the Singaporean military. And we were talking about military passports and passports that have mandatory military service, because some countries that you wouldn't even think about have mandatory military registration or mandatory military service. One of those countries is Mexico, for example. Mexico has mandatory military registration. All males need to register for the army, and if you get chosen, you need to go fight for the Mexican military. In practice, this is not enforced. Specifically, if you're a naturalized Mexican citizen, or you were born somewhere else but your parents are from Mexico, this is not enforced. And in most cases, you can pay to get out of mandatory military service. This is not Estonia. This is not Singapore. These are not countries that force you to go to the military. So Mexico, although they have mandatory military registration, try saying that 10 times, you don't actually need to serve. And in most cases, you can just pay to get out of it very easily. Other countries, for example, Serbia, they don't have mandatory military service, but they used to have mandatory military service, and they might have it in the future. The same with other countries, for example, in the European Union, like Romania. I'm currently looking at Romanian residency by investment, Romanian citizenship by exception. Potentially, they used to have a citizenship by investment program before. These countries have just volunteer-based forces, but if things get worse with NATO, if things get worse with the Russia situation, they might have mandatory military service. So you have to be careful. But in these cases, one, they're not mandatory. In most of these passports that we recommend, you don't have mandatory military service. And second, you can easily get out of it. So a country like Serbia, let's say they start doing mandatory military service, is going to be the same like Mexico. You can pay a little bit and then get out of the military very easily. And any citizen, by exception, any citizen that has honorary citizenship, for example, like some of our clients, you don't need to serve in the military at all. So don't worry about it. Other countries, for example, Turkey, citizenship by investment program, they do have mandatory military service, not even registration, service, but citizens by investment are exempted from the service. And their kids can just pay a small fee to also be exempted. Most of these places where you're paying to get a citizenship, where you're investing in a country, where you're giving value to this country in exchange for an investment, they will obviously not make you serve in the military, because it will deter anybody else from getting their citizenship in the future. 2 other interesting countries, because one of them has a golden visa program and another has a citizenship by birth program that a lot of people take advantage of. The first one being Greece. Greece has a golden visa. A lot of people want to go live in Greece and become Greek citizens, although it's very hard to naturalize as a Greek citizen. But let's say that you live in Greece more than 10 years, you want to naturalize there. Greek people have to serve in the military at least 9 to 12 months, depending on the military branch. But obviously, as I said before, it is not enforced. We're not in Iran or something. You can pay to get out of this military service, specifically if, for example, your parents, or if you're planning to have children and you're planning to get the Greek golden visa, maybe they will be born in Greece and they will naturalize as Greek people. If your parents got citizenship in Greece or got residency in Greece by investing, they're usually exempted, or by exception, they're usually completely exempted from this. And the other country would be Brazil. Men 18 to 45 are subject to selective conscription with 12 months of service. So let's say they want to give birth in Brazil. To give your child a Brazilian passport, a potential path towards Portuguese citizenship, as well as yourself, a potential path towards Brazilian citizenship and Brazilian permanent residency, your child can also pay to get out of the Brazilian military. And in most cases, they don't even force you to even register. So I wouldn't really be worried in, I would say, all Latin American countries. And in Europe, in the countries that I mentioned, both in the European Union and outside of the European Union, most of these places are volunteer forces. And even if they have more problems in the future, you can always pay. And also citizens by investment and by exception are not required to go to the military. Why I made a video on this topic and why I think this is very important when choosing a second citizenship is because I was living in Ukraine right before the war broke out, and I was considering applying for Ukrainian citizenship because I had a Ukrainian wife and I was actually eligible to apply. And I thought things are getting too heated. The border is already having issues a couple of months before it broke out. And I thought this is really a situation where there is mandatory military service. There is an active conflict and even a future huge conflict. And there is a potential for me to not even be allowed to leave the country. This is a tough one. I'm going to pass on it. And it was a good decision to pass on that citizenship. Even if I would have gotten it, I would probably paid to get out of the territory in time. And many people paid to get out. So obviously if you have money, that makes it way easier. But you want to make this decision calmly. And you want to make it considering all of the factors, even military service. If you want to get a second citizenship, a second passport, and you want to see all the options around the world that offer citizenship by investment, check out this video right here on every single country around the world where you can invest into a country and get a passport in exchange for that investment. Check it out right here.